Hey, Laurie.
Hi, Amy. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for helping us put this together.
Well, I appreciate that you guys wanted to have the conversation, so this is awesome.
Yeah, well, the projects are very interesting. I live in Concord, so I'm looking forward to having a book delivered via bike.
Okay, good. Yeah, Matt is holding up his thumb, so yeah, you get to hear all about that.
I don't think you want to come out to my neck of the woods, Matt. I'll come to you, but it was an interesting initiative for sure.
I'm so glad you like it.
Hi, Amy.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you to you and Laurie for organizing this. You all put together most of the work, and I know you've already promoted this on your own, so it'd be good for us to have a conversation about it too.
Well, we're very proud of what the libraries in New Hampshire have been able to do with this funding. There are some really innovative projects, and we're really anxious to let the citizens of the state know how hard our librarians are working on these. So we appreciate Representative Kuster taking the time today to talk to us about this. So.
Yes, she's looking forward to it.
Great. You're here, you're not in Washington, right?
No, I'm based in Concord.
Right. I just wondered if you had escaped, because it was 3 in my car when I got in today. That's the coldest I've seen it for a long time.
Yeah, pretty cold. I mean, what do we got right now? 12 degrees now.
Well, I can't complain too much. We were in the Caribbean last week, so this is somewhat of a shock for me.
Yeah, well, we'll all live vicariously through your stories from that.
Mike, you missed the almost 30 below day last week. So yeah, this is nothing.
Well, we got the reports from my son, and we just kept sending him pictures of us lounging on the boat, and he didn't really appreciate it very much. So kept tormenting him with the warm water from the Caribbean. But I feel like I've had my share of cold weather. I've lived here a long time.
And I'll do a little bit of technical housekeeping while we wait for the Congresswoman. Just so everybody knows, we are recording this. And we plan to send a press release out after the fact. And then we also do have Paul Hayes from the Caledonian Record, who's joining just to cover it for his paper. So you're not on record right now, but I'll let you guys know when we let him in.
And Laurie, are we in good shape for the folks that are going to be participating once we turn it over to you? I don't have the list in front of me.
Yep, we are. We have 5 different people speaking to 4 different projects. They know the order and they know what they're doing. So it should be a good overview with time for the Congresswoman to give some, ask some questions and give some feedback as those stories about the grants are being told.
Great. And I know when she signs on, she'll kick off and talk about highlight for the media, some specific projects that you all are working on and the funding from American Rescue Plan. And then she'll kick it over to Mike and Lori, and then Lori will let you do your thing after that with facilitating the speakers. And then we can have an open conversation till around 12:45. If we go a few minutes over, I think that's fine.
Okay, terrific. That sounds great. Thank you.
And Laurie, you remember my colleague Nick, who's just joined. Good afternoon, Congresswoman. Oh, I think you're on mute, Congresswoman.
Sorry, too many back-to-back Zooms. How are you all?
Good.
Well, we have everybody assembled. We'll turn it over to the Congresswoman first for opening remarks, and then Mike York, the state librarian, along with the assistant state librarian Lori Fisher, will speak, and then Lori will facilitate the conversation from there. And we're really looking forward to having this. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be on the Zoom today with Congresswoman Kuster.
Great, thank you, Amy, and great to be with you all. It's so good to at least see you. I'd love to be with you in person, but wonderful to be back with you to continue this conversation about all the incredible efforts that you've been making during the COVID-19 pandemic. And particularly to hear firsthand about the funds that libraries have received from the American Rescue Plan and how those funds are impacting and strengthening the work of New Hampshire's community libraries. So throughout my time in Congress, I've been proud to champion our wonderful libraries. And I certainly know and share as often as I get the opportunity that our libraries are the backbones of our communities that each of you serve. The American Rescue Plan is literally the most consequential legislation that I have voted for during my time in Congress. And right here in New Hampshire, more than 40 public libraries are sharing $825,000 in the latest round of federal funding to support services and programs that anticipate the changing needs of patrons of libraries. The funds from the American Rescue Plan have helped realize the New Hampshire State Library's goals, including expanding access for patrons of all abilities and improving equity of access by offering support to library staff. So I'm eager to hear from you all today on your plans to use these funds to create or upgrade spaces such as maker spaces that will be shared with community groups. And I know some of you joining today plan to upgrade technology or even buy bicycles to deliver materials to those who can't get to the library. Recipients of the second and most recent round of grant funding for libraries supported by the American Rescue Plan include many worthy recipients in the 2nd Congressional District, and I'll highlight just a few. The Keene Public Library supporting hybrid learning functions, a learning garden and programming pavilion at the Bethlehem Public Library in the North Country, a StoryCorps collaborative project to record community stories of Newfound Region residents at the Minot Public Library in Bristol. In Hanover, virtual programming for the community reading program and partnership with the Upper Valley Community Access Television and with Northern Stage Theater. In Lebanon, support services for the unhoused and in-need community members. In Plymouth, modernization of historical records at the Pease Public Library, renovating space for a new teen area in Milford, expanding community outreach and pop-up libraries to reach more residents in the city of Nashua. In Concord, a bike bookmobile program for outreach to underserved communities with outreach at the Concord Multicultural Festival and Overcomes Refugee Services. In Newport, the Richards Free Library will use funding to support the creation of a circulating board game and video game collection to meet the needs of teens displaced from group gaming by COVID, with the Abbott Library in Sunapee and the Tracy Memorial Library in New London. And that's just a few of the wonderful projects among 21 libraries in my district that will be benefiting from this critical funding made possible by the American Rescue Plan. So thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. I look forward to our conversation. And with that, I'm very pleased to turn it over to Mike York, our state librarian, to kick things off.
Well, thank you very much, Congresswoman Kuster. We are very thankful for your taking the time today to allow us and the library community in New Hampshire to talk about the use of the ARPA funds, the generous contribution from the federal government that was received by the state library to distribute to our libraries from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. We have some great projects. We're very, very proud of what the New Hampshire library community has been able to do with this, in this case, $125,000 in ARPA funds to improve library services for New Hampshire residents. So again, we thank you for taking the time today to let us talk about this with you. And I'll now turn it over to Lori, who's going to get our libraries to talk about these projects that they have been developing.
Thanks, Mike. First, I just want to give a brief overview of how we approach distributing the ARPA funds, particularly because when we received notice that these funds were available through the Institute of Museum and Library Services last April, there was a very strong directive to make sure we get this money out as quickly as possible. And I just want to give some kudos to all of the public libraries in New Hampshire because we were able to start distributing money by June of 2021. We do not have a regular sub-grant program for our federal monies. We normally spend our annual allocation, which is about 1.3 million in LSTA funds on statewide services. So getting $2.297 million, that was a big deal, and I had to set up a sub-grant program pretty quickly. But because our libraries were very responsive and filled out the applications, told us what they wanted to do with a formulaic allocation, which was available to every library in New Hampshire, we were able to get monies out pretty quick. So that first round was from the application went out in May, monies started to be distributed in June, and it ended in August. And that was really mainly to support some very immediate COVID pandemic needs in libraries, which ranged the gamut from more PPE, things to do outside programming because a lot of libraries were too small to have in-person gatherings for their summer reading programs, and also summer reading program support for virtual offerings. So we were able to distribute over $400,000 through that first round. And then the second round is a competitive round, so it's a little different. The first round, every library received a base amount of $1,000, and then on top of that, there was an allocation based on population and the county poverty level. So the amounts ranged from about $1,000 to Manchester received about a little over $13,000 as the most populous city library in the state. So the second round was a competitive round. We really strongly encouraged collaborations, not just between libraries, but between libraries and other community organizations. There was a review panel of 5 librarians who looked over all the applications. The application period started in August and ended in September. We reviewed in October and November, and awards were announced in December. So the projects you're going to hear about today are really taking place January through July right now. So without further ado, then I'd like to introduce Matt Bowes, who's from Concord Public Library. He's the assistant director, and he's going to talk about Concord's project.
Hi, everyone. I'll just start by saying thank you so much, Congresswoman Kuster, for all of your support of libraries in our communities, and for this funding that's made all of these projects possible. So we can't say how much we appreciate that. So our project, as you mentioned, is to start an e-bike bookmobile program. We'll be buying 2 e-bikes from a local bike shop, and we're going to be having 2 bookmobiles fabricated to tow behind these book bikes. They'll be filled with early literacy activities and kits, community information to connect people with resources. And we'll be taking these out on the road. We're excited to get our librarians out of the building into the community, where we'll be meeting new faces and connecting people with the resources that they need. As we were doing our research, we were really pleased to find that in Concord, as a resettlement site, we have refugees and immigrants from over 43 countries since 1998. And we found that racially or ethnically diverse populations make up nearly 20% of our school district. So there's a clear need for us to get out there and really meet these community members and connect them to what they need. So that's how we envision this happening. And we're excited to be out at the local parks, the local pools, and special events like the Multicultural Festival that happens here every year. So it's really exciting for us. It wouldn't be possible without these fundings. So thank you so much. And please let me know if you want me to elaborate on anything.
What a great project. That really sounds fascinating and very important to introduce kids to reading. And I imagine you'll have a whole new array of culturally appropriate books and languages in the schools and in the books that kids are reading. And I just think it's really exciting. It's a great time for New Hampshire and to welcome these families, refugees, immigrants to the wonderful life that we love. I do want to make a note, I'm not being robbed. We're in the middle of a move and they just had to move a few last things in my apartment. So all is well on my end. Thanks.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I was wondering if you were okay. So thank you. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that update. Next is Mindy Atwood, who is the library director in Sunapee.
Yes. Hello, Congresswoman. So many thanks to State Librarian Michael York and Assistant State Librarian Lori Fisher for the opportunity to speak today. And also just a very brief shout out to everyone at the State Library who made fast distribution of those grant funds possible. I know it was an all hands to deck situation and we are so grateful for their work. My name is Mindy Atwood and I live and work in the town of Sunapee as the director of the Abbott Library. Congresswoman Kuster, I want to say thank you for supporting LSTA, ARPA, and for your co-sponsorship of the Build America's Library Act that was introduced back in March of 2021. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to share with you just one example of the work that's been able to be done thanks to your support of and advocacy for libraries. As you probably know, the town of Sunapee is a small town of about 3,500, tucked into the west central part of the state. We have a lovely lake and a great ski mountain. Interestingly, though, since March of 2020, the town clerk tells us that more than 500 people have declared residency here. So we're under a bit of a population boom right now. That's a lot for us. But we are a one town, one school, one library community. And as the town library, the Abbott Library enjoys a great relationship with the Sunapee School District, including co-hosting programs, administering summer reading tests at the library, and even working together to deliver Abbott Library materials via the school district's buses during the spring and summer of 2020. Our ARPA grant proposal of almost $15,000 sought to build on the collaborative relationship between the Abbott Library and the school district to enhance and diversify access to shared resources. So we plan to achieve this goal through 4 activities. The creation of a shared online catalog between the Abbott Library and the 2 school libraries, the creation of a shared collection of STEM kits, purchase of summer reading books not currently owned by the Abbott Library, and the addition of the Abbott Library to the interschool delivery route. Through the shared catalog, patrons, students, and educators will have enhanced access to a more diverse array of content. And a shared catalog will open the door for educators and staff to work together to accomplish goals for local students. And the addition of more summer reading books will also provide access to diversified content for students, educators, and the Abbott Library patrons. The shared STEM kits will benefit the elementary school students throughout the year, and then making them available during the summer months will not only provide a continuity of learning, but it will also maximize resource use and taxpayer dollars. By sharing both the catalog and their resources, we believe that there will be increased communication and collaboration between the public school and the library. And we hope that that will create a strong foundation for future strategic solutions. And another little nice bonus is that students will automatically become eligible borrowers at the Abbott Library, which means that they will thereby removing any barrier to signing up for a public library card. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for your support of libraries. New Hampshire libraries and their patrons are very grateful.
Great. You're not alone. Sunapee is not alone in this influx. I know that's going on in Jackson and North Conway and a lot of the Lakes region and mountain communities, and probably on the seacoast too, I would imagine. What's going to be interesting is how many of these people stay. But, you know, I think as long as we can provide good, high quality internet, then people can work and live in a beautiful place. And it's really changing dramatically the face of the workplace. And certainly it's changing corporate real estate in urban areas by quite a bit. So,
yeah.
But I think libraries will play a really important role in creating community, you know, whether it's new Americans and refugees from around the globe, or whether it's people moving here from Southern New England, New York area to enjoy our quality of life. I think libraries in these towns can really create community and help people with that transition, so that you don't end up with a kind of us-them approach and attitude toward it. And I think you do play an important role. And the other thing that's going to be very interesting is the level of services that people have become accustomed to in the communities that they're coming from. And they may not realize that, you know, in your small towns, you're it. And they're going to be looking for a lot from you. And I think you're the interpreters back and forth in terms of helping people adjust. We have a very high quality of life, and we do it on very thin margins in terms of state and local government. So I think it'll be very interesting. But thank you. It sounds great.
Yes, thank you. We are a summer resort community, so we are used to meeting different expectations through the summer months of folks that are coming up from Southern New England. And so now we're just having to meet that year round.
Well, and there's a lot going on. It's COVID, and outdoor sports are so important to people. It's also telework. You know, this was just bottled up, and people, young people knew it could happen, but our generation was just standing in the way. No, you have to sit in traffic for 45 minutes and then sit in a box in front of your computer. And we've all learned, like, oh, we could all get together like this. Think of, we would all have had to drive. And by the way, I'm in DC, so you know, to do this meeting. But the other thing about it, just thinking of Sunapee, so I'm a skier, and one of the things about COVID is just getting outdoors and, you know, it's a safe way to be together with your family, with your friends. And I remember last winter, a year ago, being so surprised when the lines were so long on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday at Sunapee. And I think people have realized, you know, they can sneak in a few runs in the morning and then hop on the Zoom for the rest of the day. And nobody's the wiser that they've got a jacket on top and ski pants on the bottom. So I think there's a lot of that going on as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Mindy. And personally, I'm really interested to see the impact of your project, because it is a fantastic local collaboration that hopefully will have a big effect, not just on showing how to sometimes at loggerheads, parts of local government can work together, share resources, and be more effective in the use of tax dollars. I'm really hoping that we'll be able to see that as we go forward, and I know you are too. So.
Yes, thanks, Lori.
So next up is Ruby Simon, who is the director of the Howe Library in Hanover.
Hello, Congresswoman. I want to follow up and piggyback off of Mindy and just also say thank you so much in your office for helping us, you know, get these funds, and also the state library. Lori, I know you did a lot of work behind the scenes, and we had several meetings just helping us through the process. And you know, at the end of it all, it felt pretty smooth considering and where we ended up. And we're very grateful for the support we got. And we're so excited about the projects we're working on, and also hearing from the other libraries. In Hanover, our project actually started out, I think it was an idea that stemmed from the first round when we got our initial monies. We, you know, we had closed for COVID, so we were scrambling to try to figure out how we could continue offering our programs and services. And we were able to purchase the individual Zoom owls at that time, and that really changed the way we were able to offer our services, and it made a big difference. Thus, then when the second round came by, we knew that, you know, we wanted to figure out how we could piggyback off of that and expand the work that we were doing. So we reached out to a couple of community partners that we had been wanting to work with, and those were both Northern Stage and CATV, and figuring out how we could generate more collaborative programming, but also try to figure out how to function within obviously the environment we were in with COVID. And our staff had been looking at different technologies, and Zoom rooms were one of the ideas that we had thought would work very well for us. So that is what we're hoping to move forward on. We actually just ordered the equipment. It's come in, and I think next week we will be installing our probably, I think maybe first and only Zoom room in Hanover. Dartmouth may have one somewhere that we don't know about, but we're excited about the opportunity to put a Zoom room and also share that with other local libraries, smaller public libraries in the area, and just use this new platform to be able to expand and continue to be able to offer our programmings and reach out to the community. We know a lot of local boards and committees and different nonprofit organizations are also trying to find ways to be able to continue their meetings. So we're going to offer this service as well for them to be able to use that kind of innovative technology platform that I think we're all trying to figure out how to use the smaller Zoom owls, and how do we expand that. So we're excited to be able to use this and kind of, you know, use it as a stepping stone and try to expand what we're able to do. We're excited to partner with Northern Stage and CATV and see, I know Northern Stage does a community date series, and we also do on an annual basis a community read. So we're going to use those two programs to kind of start building content and get ourselves familiarized with the Zoom room technology and be able to expand that, and also teach not only our staff, but other local, community members and school districts and public libraries on how to use it and be able to share that with them. So we're excited as we move forward on that and see where new technology and the innovation takes us. Thank you.
Sounds great. It sounds fun. And, it'll be interesting to see. And once we get a little bit post-COVID here, I'm happy to come up and take a look. It'll be interesting.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruby. And last on our scheduled speakers list is Tim Sheehan and Caitlin Kemage. Tim is the director at the Pembroke Town Library, and Caitlin is at the Epsom Public Library. They are 2 out of 5 partners who submitted 1 grant application.
Great. Thank you, Lori. I'm Tim Sheehan. I'm the director of the Pembroke Town Library. When people borrow something from the library, they save money. They also save space in their homes. They're not buying items that they have to store for a long period of time, and then they dump these items when they feel that they no longer need them. So by borrowing instead of buying, people are saving our landfills from additional waste. Currently, our library's collection is dominated by books and videos. We're expanding our collection to 2 other items: the Chesley Memorial Library of Northwood, the Epsom Public Library, the Josiah Carpenter Library of Pittsfield, Pembroke Academy, and the Pembroke Town Library have joined forces to create a shared library of things. Using ARPA funding, our 5 libraries are purchasing tools, cameras, outdoor activity equipment, craft equipment, musical instruments, party equipment, early learning and literacy items, and games. These items will be available for residents of our 4 communities to borrow. We're purchasing these items that people may use a few times a year. We're saving people money and space by having these items available to borrow. By having these items available, we're providing an additional service to our current users and will attract those who currently do not use the library. We sought input from our communities about items they need. Donna Bunker, director of the Chesley Memorial Library, couldn't be here today, but I'm going to share what she did. She collaborated with the Northwood Recreation Department to list items that the rec department needed, but does not have the money to purchase nor the space to store the items. As a result of the collaboration, a cotton candy machine, hot dog steamer, and large popcorn maker will be purchased for use at Northwood's annual town fair, but it will also be available to library card holders to borrow when not in use by the rec department. This interdepartment collaboration will save people money. We thank you, Representative Kuster, for your work in securing federal money for our project. We also thank you for your support for funding the Institute of Museum and Library Services. As you know, our state library uses IMLS funding to provide services that New Hampshire libraries and residents use. We appreciate your efforts. I'm going to turn things over to Caitlin to talk more about what Epsom's doing with the project.
Thank you, Tim. I just want to start by echoing all of my library colleagues here and thanking you, Congresswoman Kuster, for all of your support of our New Hampshire public libraries through the ARPA funding and everything else that you've been involved in. Libraries, I think historically, we have been, the heart of our profession has been to identify and meet the needs of our communities. And I think the ARPA process that we kind of went through, and thank you, Lori Fisher, for all your support in facilitating that process, really created an opportunity for us to come together and talk as colleagues in neighboring towns and realize that we had some shared need and some shared barriers. And so when we kind of pool our resources, staff and items, you can start to see that we can meet a lot of need together. So yes, as Tim said, we have 5 different libraries that collaborated on our Library of Things, but we also went into the schools in some of our towns as well. So in Epsom, I met with school representatives, and we really started to see that some of the things that students were working with and doing during the day, they lack access in the evening or weekends or breaks. So within the Library of Things, we're trying to meet some of that need as well. So for example, and they're learning green screen technology in the classroom, and they want to try to implement that in a project at home, they can come to our libraries and check out all the equipment. So again, thank you so much. We really appreciate all of your support, and we look forward to implementing all of our Library of Things into our 5 communities.
Well, it's certainly creative. What a great idea. And you know, the party of it, items and games and certainly sporting equipment. I mean, it seems like it could be endless. I can't imagine the storage and the cataloging and the organization of it all, but what a great way to get people engaged. And, you know, while they're there, maybe they'll be reading books about the sport that they're trying out, or planning a good party. So I think it's a great way to get people engaged with the library. I know a lot of libraries have CD collections and DVD collections, if that's still a thing, and movies, and you know, so anything that we can do to meet people where they are. I remember many years ago, this was cutting edge technology at the time, but my grandmother was going blind, and she just lived for the books on tape that arrived by mail at her house. And she had this big machine, and she could navigate putting it in, and just brought the world to her. And I think of the number of people, I mean, particularly during COVID, there's so many things that we don't even yet know about the long-term impacts, but we certainly know that there are significant mental health impacts from the shutdown of the whole society in the first place, but then more recently, challenges in the schools, teen suicide, way up. One of the things that I'm just so devastated by, we've done a lot of work on the opioid epidemic in New Hampshire, and then COVID came, and the numbers are worse than ever before, with an increase in opioid and drug overdoses. So I think all of you are really on the front lines of helping us knit our society back together. And, you know, I'm an optimist. I think Omicron is going to wind down. New Hampshire was devastated by Delta before Omicron even hit, and then Omicron on top of it. This is probably, I would say, this stretch right now is about the most difficult time in my lifetime in the state that I can remember. And I think come the spring and the nice weather and getting together with family and friends outdoors, at least when the weather warms up, I think we're all going to be really trying to assess, how do we knit back together those community relationships? How do we support families in need in our communities, whether it's financial, or they're new Americans, or they're people of different backgrounds? How do we create a community where everybody is valued and respected and honored, and where everybody can thrive? Young people, seniors, you know, we're going to have to go figure out these people who have been isolated. How can we bring them back into the fold here? So I just so admire the work that you're doing, and the part that we could do is provide the funding. You know, I keep having to remind people, March of 2020, we were facing the total collapse of our economy at the same time that we were dealing with the most contagious pandemic of our lifetime. And I think that Congress takes a lot of hits, but I think we got this one right. The American Rescue Plan did save our economy. The Paycheck protection program helped people to keep their homes and keep their paychecks and feed their families. And we haven't seen the collapse of our economy. In fact, if anything, in New Hampshire, when you have Fidelity and BAE adding 900 jobs each, and our problem is the opposite. We don't have enough people to do the good jobs now. And that's where welcoming the immigrants and the refugees will make a big difference. But I think as we go forward, we staved off the collapse. The question is, what is the transition going to be like? How are we going to reach out and support one another in this sort of new world that we're in, working from home more than we used to, certainly telehealth, getting our healthcare from home more than we used to. And you're on the front edge of that. You know, I know so many of you providing computer access, internet access for people in need. You're providing that link to education and training and job opportunity. That's a really important thing. So I just admire what you're doing. We're here to help. Amy Slattery from my team, my deputy district director, has been working with all of you. And we will be on the lookout for opportunity for funding, and just anytime there's legislation, give us a shout. We're here to be supportive.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Definitely, we really appreciate your ongoing annual support for LSTA funding. That is critical to us being able to support our public libraries to do just what you're saying, which is help our communities find ways to come back together, whether in all ways, and you know, both virtual, in person, and libraries are key to that. So I know we have a couple more minutes. We do have a couple of other people on the call who were grant recipients. And I know Marty Fisk from Keene reached out to me via chat and asked if she could speak to her project. So Marty, go ahead. Ooh. Your audio is, it doesn't sound like Mickey Mouse. It sounds worse. Oh, no. Well,
Marty, visit Marty. We'll come over to Keene as soon as we can get out and about. I think in the spring and certainly in the summer, I'll be all over the district. So I'm happy to come visit and see your project.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Betsy or Pat Fickett or Nicole, do any of you want to speak to your projects?
I'd be happy to. I'm Betsy Solon in Milford, and our project was to take a tiny little nook that we have for teens and expand it in another part of the library to give our teens a place to come and gather and learn together and to give back to our community. We really feel it's important. We have them come in now. There's no place for them to sit except in the children's room and those tiny little chairs at those tiny little tables. And of course, they immediately regress back to second grade behavior when they're sitting in that room. So we want to give them a place where they can be themselves. And as part of that, we're going to institute a kindness corner where they're going to work on projects to earn community service hours for scholarships and National Honor Society, but also give back to the community by working on projects there. So we're excited. We think it's a way to embrace them back into our town.
That's great. Maybe they can even read to the little kids.
Yes, maybe.
Great. Thank you, Betsy. Pat Fickett from Wilton would like to speak about her project.
Good afternoon, Representative Kuster.
Hi,
Wilton is a tiny town, 3,800 people, and the library here has always been a hub for the community. We're the place where community groups meet. We have always been central to the cultural life of the town, but all the buildings in town are old. The rooms in them are small, and there's never been sufficient space. But with the onset of the pandemic, the spaces that we had just couldn't accommodate people for any kind of group activities. when I heard about this project and was looking at how do we come up with a project that benefits not only the library, but the entire town, I did a series of focus groups around town, invited a lot of input, and the consistent answer was, we need community space. We need a space to meet. So that became the project, and I engaged with 10 community partners to find community space. The Second Congregational Church of Wilton has offered us a rental agreement for their church hall. So we have now embarked on what we're calling the Wilton Collaborative Space. We had our open house last night. We had around 50 people come, which for, you know, the middle of Omicron is not a bad thing. And we saw every community partner had a display, the library had a display, all talking about the things that we do and the things that we want to do in the space. And just in this one night, new partnerships were formed, new programs came into existence. I think we have 5 new program offerings just from our one night of collaboration. It's so exciting for our community, and it never would have happened without this grant. So again, thank you for your support. Thank you for making these kinds of things possible for small towns and for really giving Wilton a boost. This is exciting project for us. Thank you so much.
Great.
And last person to speak, because I know we're heading towards 12:45. Anne, you wanted to say some words?
Yes, like everyone else, thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Lori, so much for making this possible. We're a tiny, my name is Ann Sternagel. I'm from Abbey Greenleaf Library up in Franconia in the White Mountains. We're a tiny community of 1,000 people, and we purchased outdoor seating and programmed lots of music, and we had a blast this summer. And it was such an injection of good energy and hopefulness that came out of it. Who knew that buying a bunch of Adirondack chairs could, you know, change the just change the attitude of a community. So and we never would have done that if we hadn't had the grant. There was just no funding for that. So I'll just keep it short. Thank you very much. Well, and that brings up a really good point. All this talk about recreating community, I do think people are starved for it. And so I think if you give folks the opportunity to get together, I think they're going to be really, really excited about it. And, you know, I think we're going to have an infusion of testing, masks are going to be available to everyone, and hopefully give it a month, but I'd love to say that toward the end of February, and certainly as we head into March and mud season and spring and then summer, I mean, looking back, we knew this from the beginning that summers would be better, but we didn't realize how much better. That we only had 8 people in the entire state of New Hampshire, 1.3 million people in the hospital that first summer at one point. And the second summer, it got down to 11 people in the hospital. And right now, we've been, for several months now, we've been over 400 people. So definitely make plans for people to get together when things warm up, and Adirondack chairs and music and whatever it takes. That's very creative, really wonderful. And the other thing, let me just, are we close to closing? Let me just close with this. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee on the Health Subcommittee, and we just had a presentation this morning by the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Gupta, and he was talking about health misinformation. And one of the great frustrations, and I won't get political in this, but it is the struggle of our time right now, is that as librarians, your currency is information, And we have the information to end this pandemic. And we've had it for quite some time. And we know what works, and we know how to protect ourselves and our families and our communities. But we are battling healthcare misinformation that is leading to tens of thousands of people across the country, probably close to 100,000 of people dying needlessly. And it's tragic. We would never let that happen. This is sort of like handing out sharp knives to every 7th grader in the country, or, you know, taking when cruise control gets stuck on your car, you know, think of the things across our society that we have spent years and years and years with technology and know-how to make sure we keep people safe. Young people, children, babies, elderly people, our whole role, our whole goal is to keep people safe. And yet there's this misinformation and people are dying. And what he was saying is, it's incumbent on all of us. It's incumbent on, you know, professionals and electeds to be talking about it, but individuals to be making decisions about what we read and what we forward and what we post and what we talk about and what we think about. And I think, look, we're going to get past this pandemic. It's going to take longer than it should have because of misinformation. But then we're going to be in a place where we really need to communicate and teach people to be thoughtful consumers of information. And you're at the core of that. You can help people learn, you can help young people, but you can help everyone learn what are reliable sources of information. And, you know, we have been inundated, and yes, it's complex, that science changes over time, and there are new ideas and new information that help you to make a difference about that. You know, it was complicated in the beginning when they told us not to wear masks. We should have been wearing masks. And they didn't want all the masks to get all used by the lay people because the healthcare providers needed it. Now we know better. But I just think you, both creating community and fighting this battle of misinformation, I think you're at a really critical role. And I want to support you. I'm also worried about our democracy, but I'm worried about our, with a small d, at the very, very local level. And so if there's anything that we could be doing to support you in your role, to hold you up as the keepers of the flame of education and information and opportunity and community. I think your role is really important right now. And I appreciate everything you're doing. And thank you for taking the time with me. And again, I apologize for the slightly jarring look of those guys masked coming through and taking furniture. They were great guys. They did a nice job, and the move is complete. So thank you very much. Good to be with you. And thank you again, Lori, for all your help organizing. Thanks to Amy, and everybody stay safe out there. Wear your mask.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We really appreciate your time today.
Good to be with you. Thank you. Bye-bye.